All right, welcome back to our next episode of the Holistic Health and Weight Loss Docuseries. Our next featured expert is Melanie Cohen, and she's going to talk about lose weight and get healthy by removing the literal and figurative clutter in your life. Melanie has been a veteran weight loss coach of over 20 years, and her approach to weight loss includes removing the physical and mental clutter in her clients' lives. There are a lot of weight loss coaches out there, but only a handful who explore the connections between clutter and weight. So, welcome, Melanie. So happy and excited to have you with us today.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
And you're right, there are very few who speak about clutter when it comes to weight and health. So, I'm curious, how did you come to be doing the work that you're currently doing?
Well, how far back in history do you want me to go to be able to say that?
As far as you want to
uh,
go.
well, I want to address why weight and why clutter. And the long and the short of the weight thing is that I was a competitive gymnast growing up, super amazing shape. And despite what great shape I was in, there was toxic scrutiny over the scale at the gym, a lot of verbal abuse,
Hmm.
and saying things to preteen and teenage girls like you're fat, you're chubby, you're not worth it, you're not good enough. And when I decided enough was enough and quit gymnastics, I gained weight. And like the common thread in my life was gain weight in college, gain weight after getting married, gain weight after kids. And when I hit 30, I also hit over 200 on the scale. And remember, I said I was a gymnast, so I'm not tall. So that's a lot of weight on a shorter body. And it all, came to a head when I took my eldest daughter to her first gymnastics class. And I wanted to enjoy her experience, but all I saw in my reflection in the window to the gym, and I started crying. I was like, I can't be this person. Who am I? I had no identity if I wasn't who I had once been. So I joined a great weight loss plan. I lost just over 60 pounds and became a weight loss coach, which was amazing. I love helping people. I love being with people. I love connecting with people. And I did that for about 20 years when I said, I think there's something more to this calories in and calories out. I wanted it to be less about exactly what we're eating or exactly how much we're eating or how much we're working out or in what ways and all the things that we know that we need to do to lose weight. So I wanted to get more to the root of it. And, it's been interesting. I've had the opportunity to watch a lot of the replays from the last couple of days. And there is this one common thread, and it's stress and how stress affects our bodies, whether it's our weight, our joints, our heart health, our lung capacity, all the things. And what I have recognized in my life is that when stressed, what is the behavior that happens next?
Mhm.
And my grandfather was a gambler. And I mean, gambler like lost, homes and stuff like that. My father was a drug addict. And again, lost homes and cars and businesses and stuff like that. And so I think I've always been afraid of gambling and I've always been afraid of drugs.
Mhm.
I was never afraid of food. Well, I mean, maybe I was afraid of it when I was doing gymnastics and I
Yeah.
was told all the time what I can and can't eat. But it was much easier to choose food as a way to manage uncomfortable feelings. And stress is an uncomfortable feeling. And so I did a little exploration into the concept of clutter. And I know a lot of people, when they hear the words clutter, they think of that Hoarders TV show. And at the end of the day, that's an extreme. It's 1 to 5% of our population that suffer from something that extreme. But that over 60% of people in the United States express concern having challenges with clutter.
Mm.
And clutter comes in so many different forms, which I'm going to get into in a minute. But really, the number one reason I wanted to connect these two is that if we can understand what's creating our stress, we can limit that stress. We don't have to automatically go to what will I do differently when I'm stressed, but how can I cut back on some of that stress? So I hope that's helpful to understand why I landed where I landed.
Yes.
But what I would like to talk about today is the relationship between weight and clutter, what clutter actually is, how it affects us, and then talk about some the effect on specific spaces, and then talk briefly about ways to remove the clutter. So are we cool on that?
Absolutely.
Thumbs up. Okay, great, 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 great. So, first of all, there are dual benefits to decluttering and weight maintenance at the same time. Simultaneously working on them can really help us fine tune our goals. And there are significant benefits for our overall well being, whether it is weight loss or it is decluttering, the two of them together. And it's like, a marriage made in heaven, if you will. Like I like to say, it's like peanut butter and jelly. Okay, so clutter. Clutter is exhausting. It is an emotional trigger. It contributes to depression and anxiety. It makes simple tasks so much more complicated, and clutter can lead to unhealthy and unwanted behaviors. What is clutter specifically? I said it's a lot more than the stuff.
Mhm.
It's clothing, it's jewelry, it's accessories, it's our shoes, it's bags, pocketbooks, it is books, it is photos, print and digital. Our clutter includes paper, whether it's financial or old greeting cards, school records, the kids' artwork going back a gazillion years, any piece of paper. Um, it is digital. It's our email. It's our email box. And for so many of us, we have multiple email addresses with multiple emails in them. The same with texts and group chats, calendar entries, the things that we need to do can become clutter. And if my listing all those things didn't start stressing you out, the reality is every time I talk about it, it stresses me out just a bit. And at the end of the day, probably the most insidious clutter that there is are our thoughts and feelings,
Mhm.
all the things that we say to and about ourselves that aren't true, all the self-limiting beliefs, all of the things that we would never say to our best friend, the things that we would never say to a loved one are things that we're saying to ourselves. Okay, I want to give you some stats. I know that Pamela, you have people from all over the world, but I'm gonna speak predominantly U.S. because that's where I live, and it is because where clutter is at its greatest. One, there are over 300,000 items in the average American household. So I just look around today, and I know, and we'll talk about the pictures behind me because that may look like clutter to some people. The average American home has increased in size by nearly 3 times in the last 50 years, but that hasn't limited the clutter. It has just given us more space
Yeah, right.
to fill, right? 1 in 10 Americans spend money maintaining offsite storage space. And I don't want to call offsite storage a bad thing because the reality is it has a great purpose. Both of my daughters went to college out of state, and instead of bringing every last thing
Yeah.
home every summer, we would put them in short-term storage. Makes sense. If you were redoing your home, whether it's one space or the whole thing, you may need to put things into temporary storage. There are other reasons, but the question is, do we even know what's in that storage unit? Like, is it something that really serves an important purpose in our lives? Over 25% of American homes don't have space for a car in the garage. These oversized homes don't have space for a car in the garage. And here, this is gonna get us. There are over 50,000 storage facilities in the United States. That is more than Starbucks, McDonald's, and Subway locations combined. If we need that many storage facilities, there's a message in
I
there.
gotta say, I live in Florida, and the amount of new built storage facilities that are going up every time I drive down the road, I'm like, there's another one. Go to a different city, there's another one. Yeah.
And it's all of our stuff that we don't get to enjoy and experience and spend time with. Let me be clear. I'm not a minimalist. I
Yeah.
think you can tell that by what's behind me. And I only promote minimalism to someone who that is definitively what they want and they know that that's going to enhance their life. For me, items have energy. And the photos behind me, and I'm going to, just so you can all see, it goes up kind of high. and it goes down that way. And these photos are my family's history, my husband's family's history, and our family together's history. And I feel like behind me, the energy is everyone who came behind me, before me, those people that give me positive energy. You can do it, Melanie. It's like all of the things that I hear them saying that I would never say to myself until now, that is. So I just want people to really understand, if our things have energy, we want to hang on to the things that have positive energy, the things that make us feel good, and let go of the things that don't. And I wanted to say one more thing, because I realized a recent stat came to me that I haven't included in my deck, and that is the average American spends approximately 9 to 12 months of their life looking for lost items.
Wow.
In my lifetime, I will have spent nearly a year just looking for my keys, my phone, and then all the other things.
Maybe
Okay,
that's
so
why AirPods are so popular.
well, half the time I'm looking for my glasses, they're on my head, right? So that doesn't have much to do with clutter. It just has to do with, I don't know, perimenopause or something like that. So the benefits of decluttering, shedding excess belongings and weight just helps us live a more streamlined and simple life. Um, Clearing the clutter can help with enhanced focus, because it really sharpens our mental clarity for health and other things. It is a stress reducer. That's where I started today. Decluttering reduces stress, which means it really fosters feelings of control. Healthy habits, tidy spaces reinforce wellness practices like mindful eating and exercise. And then decluttering actually can increase our energy. Decluttering and weight loss boosts, our physical and mental health. And, I think it's really important to address, again, like how much energy there is in our things, both positive and negative. Okay. But this is important. Having clutter does not make you bad. Okay. I know, as someone who had once weighed over 200 pounds, how shaming that felt. Like how much shame I carried in what my body looked like. The same as with the clutter. There is shame and embarrassment. And so it's really important to understand we didn't choose the clutter. Okay. Clutter can be caused by stress. It can be caused by depression. It can be caused by loss, feelings of scarcity, perfectionistic thinking, and trauma. I want to touch on the perfectionistic thinking because it sounds so counterintuitive. How can I be a perfectionist and have clutter all at the same time? My mother is a hoarder. This is one of the reasons why I entered this world. And my mother is a former librarian. And, for those of us who are of a certain age, we remember when you went to the library, those card files, the Dewey Decimal System, like everything was in its place. The books were all in its place. Where she existed was a very OCD environment. But when she came home, for some reason, it didn't work there. And she wasn't incredible hoarder when I was growing up. It's just a messy environment. And what happens when we have this perfectionistic thinking, we think that we have to do it all at once. I have to clean that entire closet out today. I'm going to spend Saturday cleaning the whole house out. I am going to declutter the desk, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if we think that it has to happen all at once, that Saturday is going to come around and something comes up and this comes up. We're tired. We don't feel well. We feel great, but there's 62 other things that have to be done. And then instead of just doing a small piece of it, we end up not doing anything at all. And so it can, it just becomes worse and worse. And we get in this cycle. And then all of a sudden that clutter can be, what one might consider a hoard or just, too much stuff for each of us as individuals. I will also say feelings of scarcity and trauma were part of the cause of my mother's hoarding. I mentioned before, my father was a drug addict. He was selling family items for money. I mean, for drug money. And, so of course, she's losing things that belong to her. When my father went to rehab, they had gone bankrupt. He had lost his business. He had lost our home. He had lost his car. He had lost his wife. I was estranged from my parents for a few years. He lost his kid, which meant my mom lost her kid for a short period of time. And only imagine how important it is to hold on to the things around you, because that is the one thing you have control over. You may not have control whether or not someone leaves you. You may not have complete control over your finances. We have no control over the weather. And, I like to say living in New York City, I don't have control over the MTA or traffic. But the one thing we have control over is our things. So hanging on to them makes a lot of sense. And then feelings of scarcity. I'm an only child, and I grew up in a home where there was a deep freezer in the laundry room, and I lived in a New York City apartment. We had space, but that deep freezer was full, well, of two things. One was drugs because of my father, and he was selling and all the things. But the other half of it was like all this extra, frozen meat and things, just in case. You never know what might happen. And I think that that's like, an extended depression era focus,
Yeah.
wartime focus. So I think it's really important to address where clutter potentially comes from. So there is no need for us to be beating ourselves up for something that has very serious root causes. Okay, I want to talk about different spaces and what happens in these spaces. A cluttered kitchen. Um, for those of us that have lacking counter space, whether it's because we live in a New York City apartment and there's not a lot of clutter space, a lot of counter space, or if we're just someone that has way too many appliances or just stuff everywhere, the messier the kitchen is, the harder it is to produce a healthy meal. My counter is full of stuff. I am not pulling out the cutting board and the fancy knife and the fruits and the vegetables and the containers to prep all my food for the week. I am less likely to, at the end of the day, have the energy to clear the counter and then prepare a healthy meal. And so often that means we're picking up the phone or we're opening the apps and we're ordering in. And I don't want to give ordering in a bad name, because we can choose healthy items when we're ordering in. We can choose healthy portions when we're ordering in. But if the space is stressing us out, it is that much harder for us to make a healthy choice. And the other piece of the clutter creating stress is that it also adds to the amount of decisions that we need to make in a day. And the average person has thousands of thoughts cross their mind as the day goes by. And so many of us talk about how we are so much more productive in the morning, so much more productive in the morning when the mind is clear. And each thing that we have to do throughout the day adds thoughts and adds decision-making necessities. And we move on, and there are more thoughts and more need for decision-making. And so by the end of the day, we're starting to suffer from what's called decision-making fatigue. And wow, if I'm suffering from decision-making fatigue in my kitchen, I am only that much more challenged in making the healthy food choices that I would like to see myself making. All right, let's talk about some other space. The bedroom. Okay. Our sanctuary. This is the place where we get rest. And if the last thing we're looking at before we go to bed, is a pile of clothing over here, or a box that hasn't been emptied since we moved in, or any kind of clutter on our dresser, that's the last thing we see. What are we dreaming about? Are we having one of those fancy I'm flying through the air dreams? Those are the best. Or am I having a dream where I'm late for everything? Am I having a dream where, I can't get things done? That may be indicative of the level of stress we're experiencing and that last thing that we got to see before we went to bed. There are so many reasons for us to be suffering from poor sleep. For those of us who are perimenopausal and menopausal, we're going to fight that. I don't need to make it worse, is the way that I look at my bedroom now.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people don't realize the stress that clutter can cause
Yeah,
on their bodies. I mean, I went through a phase where because I'm moving and I was moving two different households, like it was just clutter of boxes, and then once everything was cleared out, I'm like, oh, okay.
right.
It's like, oh, okay. I was like, wow, I was really stressed. Like not even the stress of packing, but it was a stress of just having them, you know, starting to, pack way before the move date just to get everything in order.
Well, yeah. I mean, when you think about it, like, for like all the stuff that's,
Yeah.
around me, it's hard to have clarity. And, I think about my father-in-law passed away earlier this year, and leading up to his eventual passing, was falling constantly. He's in his late 80s. We fall. Although I love the talk before, the things that we do in our 30s and 40s can prevent so many challenges that we have later. But this was a very cluttered home, and I told his wife at one point, I have to believe that some of this clutter is making it that much harder for him to have the balance that he needs, because what's in his peripheral vision is creating a mess that makes it harder to find balance in the space he's walking in. I don't have scientific proof behind that. I really should do the research, but I have to believe in everything that I have learned about the relationship between weight and clutter and health and clutter, that was playing a role in his
Mhm.
inability to prevent. I mean, and the falls were weekly and at times
Mhm.
daily. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. More spaces. All right. The office. The more cluttered the office is, the harder it is for us to get work done. And this doesn't matter whether you have an office that you are going to or if the office is in your own space. Because if I have to search for that piece of paper in a pile and then put it down and then put it someplace else, but the things that I was moving around, then, well, wait, maybe I should set this aside. I'm only speaking the vocabulary and script that I said to myself before I finally sat down and said, that's it, I'm going to cut the clutter. And if I could be more productive by eliminating the clutter, well, I might finish my day faster, or I might be able to do more in my day. And when we're talking about office clutter, I want to be really clear. We're not just talking about stuff, because a lot of people don't use paper anymore. A
Yeah.
lot of people don't have the things, but our email box, our text messages, our calendar is clutter enough to prevent us from being able to be productive in our office space. And the reality is if you are going to an office space and you have a neat desk, but your cube mate does not, their clutter can affect you in negative ways. All right, more spaces. Living room and den. Okay. I live in New York City. I said it before. I live in a small apartment. We don't have a coffee table. We don't have a coffee table because, quite frankly, there really isn't the space for it. And besides, a coffee table is a catch-all for coffee mugs and coasters and papers and books, and then all of a sudden, you can't see the coffee table. But one of the things that's really important is that if the living room or den is a place that potentially you work out, and there is no space to pull out the yoga mat, there is no space to pull out the hand weights and the exercise bands or whatever else you may do at home. If there's no space, we're not going to do it. It is, literally that simple. But the living room and den, similarly to the bedroom, is a space that we expect to rest and relax.
Mhm.
I am a huge proponent of the TV. I love the escapism, whether, it's a drama or it's a comedy. And I feel like these days we need a lot of comedy out there. But at the end of the day, if that place where I want to go and relax and do those things is messy, it's going to distract me. It's going to take away from my ability to enjoy the space that I'm in.
Yeah. I think Joan had a question. Is some clutter
Oh, yeah.
overwhelming for seniors sometimes?
For seniors, sometimes what we're finding in the research, and I don't have the numbers for you, I apologize, but we are finding that more and more seniors are suffering from clutter. And I can address that very specifically. We've had, 40 years of stuff, 50 years of stuff, 60 years of experience, 70 years of life. If we're hanging on to experiences from all of those periods of time, of course, there's going to be a lot of stuff. And as we're on that second half or that last third or quarter of our life, we have to be honest and fair with ourselves and know that during that period of time, there is a lot of time spent in remembering the past and honoring the people of our past. And so, one of the things that I come across often is how much of my grandmother's stuff do I need to hang on to? How much of my mother's things do I need to somehow pay her respect and honor? And when I say that things have energy, this once belonged to my grandmother, it has beautiful energy. If this once belonged, if my mother wore this this necklace on her wedding day, I'm not getting rid of that. But I have to ask myself the question, is the memory in the things or is the memory within me? And so one of the things that I have used, or the vocabulary or the script that I use with my mother is, how do you want to leave this? When you are gone, do you want us to spend that first, days, weeks, and months honoring your memory and telling lovely stories about you, saying prayers for you? Or do you want us to be buried under the weight of your things, trying to clean it up? That's when I got my mother to start cleaning up, is because she realized that she didn't want the weight of her things to become a stressor to us. The thing is, as we get older, we get tired, we get achy, we are less dependent, whether we like it or not. And so if a little bit of clutter can become a lot of clutter in a very short period of time, because physically we are less capable in our space than we were before. And it becomes overwhelming. There may be depression or loss, and it can make it that much harder. So I think it's another thing to really address, asking for help so that I can manage this. We can do it on our own. I want to be fair. No one needs a coach. They can do it on their own. But why would you do it on your own if you could have a great coach or community around you to support you while doing this? I say the same for weight loss. We could all do it by ourselves, but why would we do it by ourselves if we can have someone on our team helping us get there in easier ways? All right, so let's just say you're ready to get rid of some stuff. I just want to go through some of the basics in terms of how this works, okay? We need to know that we're not getting rid of everything. I said it, I'm not a minimalist and I don't want to be a minimalist. So when I'm sitting down with my stuff and I need to sort it out, I need to sort the things that I'm going to keep, the things that I love, the things that need to be there. There may be things that I want to sell, but I have to, in putting something in a sell pile, ask myself, what is the value of this item and what is the value of my time? I love things like Poshmark and eBay because I can sell it myself. I have to remember that there's time. What is the cost of taking a picture of the item, loading the picture of the item, loading a description of the item, posting the item, asking questions of potential buyers about the item, selling the item, packing the item, and shipping the item. And that's worth it to me if it's something that I might make $50 on, and there was a time where it would be worth my time if I was going to get $20 out of it. But if it's going to be less, I have to ask myself the question, is it really worth the time and energy? There are places we can go to that'll do the work for us. There are stores like Plato's Closet, Buffalo Exchange, Beacon's Closet. There are individual proprietors who will sell your items for you. You just got to bring it to them. That makes it a little bit easier. We just have to ask ourselves the question, what are we willing, to make on this item? And then I want to distinguish between giveaway and donate. Okay. Giveaway, there is someone in my life who might appreciate this. That person who complimented me the last time I wore those earrings, maybe they would like those earrings. Little things like that. I overheard someone say they needed an air fryer. and I just upgraded and I want to get rid of my old air fryer. There's someone who might want it. And there are things like Facebook group, buy nothing groups, where people ask for things or you can offer things and then donate. There is always someone that needs your jeans. There is always someone that needs that coat that you're done with, but they need. It's so important to recognize that those feelings of relief that you shared about clearing the clutter, and add to that the good feelings knowing that there is someone out there that is going to benefit from that item that they got of yours. And then here's the hard one, the trash and recycle. Okay. We wish everything was recyclable, and more is recyclable than in the past. You can find, we're always afraid that so many things are going to end up in a landfill. I get it. I don't want my stuff to be the garbage of the future. But so much more is recyclable. You have to keep your eyes and ears out. Usually local governments or municipalities will do shredding events. You can just bring your paper and let them shred it. They have electronics recycling events, and we all have that extra phone, an old iPad, a cord that we don't know what it's from. All of those things can be recycled. And then at the end of the day, there are going to be things that we want to throw away, or we need to throw away. We're afraid to say we want to throw them away. But at the end of the day, this is the way I look at it. Something that's not recyclable is going to end up in a landfill. It's either going to happen now, or in 10 years, or in 30 or 40 years, however many years I am blessed to still be on this planet. At some point, if it's trash, does trash belong in my home, or does it belong somewhere else? And the other key to this is when we declutter, we start to spend and shop differently. We start to ask ourselves, is there a place for this in my space? Will this enhance my life? Will it simplify my life? Will it add to my life in some way? Because if the answer is yes, bring it in. The question may be, but when I bring it in, is there something that I have to let go of? I like the 1 for 1, or it could be 2 for 1. Bring one in and let go of 2 things. That
because
if
it's
I'm
kind of like,
making,
kind of
yeah,
like when you buy new furniture, you're gonna get rid of the old furniture in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, makes sense.
I like that because you went to the big thing. Like I said 11 years ago, I could not fit 2 couches in here.
Mhm.
But why am I willing, when I get a new red sweater, why do I
Yeah.
have to keep the old red sweater? Why is it something that necessitates being in my space? So I like that you mentioned it that way. Okay, so there are some questions that I recommend that we ask when we're doing all of this. What's the space in my life that's the most cluttered? And how is that clutter affecting my life? Like, what does it make me do? It stresses me out. I go and eat because I know that eating makes me feel better. Or what does it make me not do? That clutter prevents me from getting work done, or it prevents me from exercising, prevents me from sleeping. What are the things that are getting in the way? What space do I want to tackle first? Not the biggest one, not the smallest one, the one that would be most meaningful. And here's something that is so important to me: setting ridiculously simple goals. Like, if I said the goal out loud, it would sound stupid to somebody else because it sounds so little. That's the perfect goal. The smallest goal I set is the one that I'm going to be able to achieve. I'm going to achieve it relatively quickly. I can pat myself on the back. And now 2 things. 1, I am both more motivated and more confident in the next step. Ridiculously simple goals. So I tackle that space. I still, even though I'm tackling one small space, I still want to have and when this is done, what's the second space? And when that done is the third space. And the space can actually be the same. If I think I'm going to clean the closet in one day on a Saturday, I may be fooling myself. Maybe I just do the top shelf in the closet, or I do half of the hanging items in the closet, or I dress the things that are on the floor that don't have a space. Just small spaces, because those simple steps, those simple goals will be the stepping stones to more complex and greater goals that we have going forward. We need to know how it will feel if we've been successful, so that we'll know we've been successful. Like Pam said, if I am feeling that relief of the items going, I know I will have experienced success. If all I do is go, it can be as simple as that. And asking those, how will it feel if I've done this? Maybe I feel accomplished. Maybe I feel productive. Maybe I feel like I deserve a gold medal in decluttering. And for me, one begets the other. And if I have done the decluttering, I know that I have opened the pathways to weight loss. So I am here for any questions or feedback.
Yeah. So can you if while they're posting in the chat, if they have a question,
Uh-huh.
or you can unmute yourself, if you can explain what your gift is for all the
Oh
participants.
my goodness, I'd be so happy, especially since I forgot to make a screen for it. So many apologies. So the free gift for everyone is my Kickstart book. We talk a little bit more about the relationship between weight and clutter, and we offer some really great ways to both declutter space, and I talk about the kitchen specifically because I really do feel like that is the environment where this all begins. And then strategies for decluttering the mind. Because, like I said, I think that the clutter that affects us the most is the mental clutter, which can be caused by the physical clutter, or it can be causing the physical clutter, all in one cycle. So the Kickstart book is my gift to you. For those of you who have opted for VIP access, I am offering a 1 hour one-on-one coaching session to discuss weight, clutter, and everything in between, and then set you up with some really great goals to get started and kickstart your own journey.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Any questions you can post in the chat or unmute yourself. Totally cool. I know when you're talking about the scarcity, I had a grandmother who was a hoarder. And then my other
Mm,
grandmother was lots of clutter, and it was all the keeping the things just in case something happened. Yeah, so
just
that's
in
scarcity.
case. That is definitely one of the phrases that I hear a lot when it comes to, or one of the themes behind clutter, just in case, or just this once. I want to be careful because, we only use our holiday decorations once a year, right? My
Mhm.
Halloween decorations
Yeah.
only come out once a year. For those of you who celebrate Christmas, I celebrate Hanukkah
Mhm.
once a year. That's not just in case, that's just for when, and there is a purpose behind it.
Yes.
But if just in case is that one thing that I don't know, in 5 years, I might be able to wear that dress again.
Yeah.
Mm.
I used to hear her say, well, someone might need it because she used to go yard sailing every Saturday. Well, someone might need this later.
But if that's true, there's going to be a yard sale that's going to have that item, right? Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, so we might have other people in our life. Maybe, how about if you're living with someone who has the clutter? How do we navigate that one?
I think Sammy in the previous one also talked about how, there are other
Yeah.
people in your life who are affected by this, or who may be affecting it. So I'll speak about my husband for a moment, because he can live with clutter better than I can. And in fact, the research shows that women are like 3 times more likely to suffer from anxiety over clutter than men
Mhm.
are. I don't know if they just do better blinders or they just don't care.
Yeah.
My husband has cleaned up because he cares about me and he can see how it affects me. But my husband is a book collector, and this is a hard one, because I know a lot of people are like, don't make me get rid of my books. I'm not going to make you get rid of your books. I made my husband get rid of some of the books. And I don't want to make it sound like I made him do it. I challenged him to ask the question, does this book produce joy? Is it something that I know I'm going to read again? Is it author signed or first edition?
Mhm. Yeah.
Was this a gift from? But he still was able to get rid of a lot of the books. So it is important for me to partner with the other people in your life. If they're not affected by the clutter and you are, it takes a conversation. When I see this clutter, it makes me feel. When I see this clutter, it makes me do. I could use your support. It's all about how the conversation is made.
Mm. So we got some questions. Karen asked,
Yeah.
what about sentimental items or we spent money on it?
Okay. I want to touch on sentimental because I think that's my grandmother left me this candy
Mhm.
dish. My grandfather left me these coins or whatever. If it's truly sentimental, like every time you look at it, you say, oh, I remember when grandma gave me that, then you got to hold on to it. But if we are hanging on to it just because it belonged to someone, we really have to ask ourselves the question, what is the value in it? A lot of sentimental items we can utilize in different ways. One of my favorite things, uh, I'm a t-shirt collector. I have t-shirts from when I was a gymnast, when I played volleyball, from college, from high school, from this rock concert, that rock concert, from
Mhm.
this vacation. And we sent in the ones that don't fit me anymore, the ones that are not in great condition. I did the same for both of my daughters, and we had quilts made out of
Oh,
the
yeah.
t-shirts. The quilt takes up a lot less space. It's very meaningful. Every time I look at it, oh, I remember when and so there are other ways to do that, whether we're creating an album out of photographs or whether we're taking pictures of items and writing a poem about it in a book or keeping that document somewhere else. There are ways to take some of those sentimental items and have them take up less, proverbial and literal space. But I think it's really important if you're not ready to get rid of an item, maybe it's not no, maybe it's not now. Maybe it's not now.
So that sounds like it's the answer to the next question, which is what if we want
Yeah.
to part with things but stuck keeping it?
Mm. I think it's really important to ask ourselves the question, why am I hanging on to this? Not that we would create like a pro and con list, but if the reasons I'm keeping it outweigh the reasons why I want to get rid of it, then again, we need to maybe get rid of it isn't fair, let it go. I very often, in knowing it's going to somebody else, gives me all the good feelings that I need to be willing to let go of that item. And I think a lot of it has to do with what kind of item are we talking about and where did it come from?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't answer the I spent money on it question.
Okay.
And that's a thing. And it's a
Yeah.
big thing. I think that's when it's important to ask the question, like, can I make money back on this? Because if I can make money back on it, even if I'm not getting all of my money, it may be more worth it for me to have this out of my space, not, getting in
Mhm.
my way of being able to live a more meaningful life. The things that are in our way are getting in the way of us living a more meaningful life. So that's a piece of it. I think the question is, and if I got rid of this thing I spent money on because I haven't used it in a year, 2 years, however
Mhm.
long it is, I'm afraid that, and in a year, I might need that item again. And now I have to go out and replace it. So
Yes.
one is ask the question, how much is it going to cost me to replace this? Because if it seems like a lot, maybe I hang on to it for a little bit longer. Or if this is something that I might need again, but it doesn't have to be mine. This is where I love the buy nothing groups again. We may not have every tool in the chest, but someone in my neighborhood has that tool and they'd be willing to lend it to me. If I got on and said I need a drill, could you lend it to me for a day? I've seen in our Buy Nothing group, can you lend me a card table or
Mhm.
folding chairs? Those of us in New York City don't have a lot of room for things like,
Yeah.
folding tables and folding chairs, but there is someone, to lend it to us. And this may not really address the question specifically, but I think in a more global sense that it does.
Mm.
Is this an item I need, or is this an item that I can borrow or rent? Maybe it is spending money, but it's a lot cheaper to rent it than
Yeah.
to buy a new one. Yeah.
And someone commented, I'm going through things to write my life story, something that I have noticed that after I have recorded it, I'm able to let go of it easier. I'm a
I
very organized
love that.
person and have let go of a lot of things. I still need to let go of more things, including books.
Wow. I love that. I absolutely love that.
Mm.
Whether you're recording the story voice to text or you're writing it, or you're maybe if you have a ghostwriter, great, you're just communicating the things that you want to be in there. what a great way to tell your story without having to have all the things. But I
Yeah.
think it's really important for someone that has been that successful so far to allow success to come in baby steps, little by little by little by little, because eventually it'll all, if we say we're going to do it all in one day, it's just not going to happen.
Mhm.
If we say we're going to do it in a month or a year, depending on the space or the things that we're talking about, we're not being fair to ourselves. You just have to take it one step at a time. It's so cliche, but one step at a time is the only way to do most things.
And Karen commented, lately I've been donating more things to declutter, feel that they're being recycled and being enjoyed and
Mm.
used by others. Yeah, I get that one too.
I like that. I like that. And a lot of places that you, and it helps to ask, a lot of the places that you may donate to may also do the recycling. If, one of the scariest pieces of clutter that's ending up in landfill right now are textiles. And there are just so many amazing ways for
Yeah.
textiles to be recycled and reused. The problem is so much of it is going to a landfill. So if you
Yeah.
choose the right place to donate, they will let you know if it's not sold in 90 days, 9 months, whatever it is, and be able to communicate where those items are going.
Yeah. And for larger items like Habitat for Humanity, organizations like that, they will
Yes.
actually come and pick it up for you.
Yes.
I did that when I recently
Yes.
moved. I'm like, take what you
That's
want.
great. Great. And the things that we don't get, like they'll take nails and screws
Mhm.
and they'll take, a piece of wood, a light fixture that's not working. They will take a lot of things that we don't see as being useful anymore, but they can turn it into something incredibly useful. Yeah.
Jessica commented the sentimental t-shirts from travels. She has that, sounds like. Learn to part with them by taking a picture first and then donating what no longer fits or wear.
Love that.
Okay,
Love
and
that.
Joan commented, I'm trying to go through my mom's stuff, but it was hard when she first died. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We have to give ourselves grace. We
Mhm.
really have to give ourselves grace. And then as we're decluttering, and this is where it is so helpful to have the conversation with them before they're gone, whether they're a hoarder like my mom or not, to just have that clear conversation of, it's okay to let them know, but I don't want this thing or I don't need this thing. When my aunt gave me my grandmother's silver, I didn't register for silver when I got married 30 years ago because I knew I wasn't going to use it. So having my grandmother's silver wasn't all mean going to mean all of a sudden I was going to use it. I have it in a chest. It actually is a beautiful pattern. I like the way it happens to look with my china. We still haven't used it. My grandmother passed 7 years ago. Even I can have a hard time of getting rid of things. But this came from not having had the conversation before she passed.
Mm.
I've told my daughters, I said, quote me now, get it in writing, get me to sign on the dotted line. I don't want you to feel weighed down by my things. I want you to tell me what are the things that you're going to want to have. My kids are adults and they know what's happening with their grandmothers. And I know I want them to feel relief. I don't want them to feel weighed down by that
Yeah,
stuff.
absolutely. Absolutely great. That's great. Another comment, I'm a book junkie, but nowadays research all online. So do I really need all these books? I made a
Oh.
library room and don't have the time to read them. And more relevant and current information found online instead of an old dusty book.
Mm. I mean, I had an Encyclopedia Britannica, and we had the same one for I don't know how many years. Like, how is that information even
Yeah.
current? A year later, and the way things, happen now, things aren't current for days. Sometimes it feels like, and I'm a firm believer in a book. I love turning the pages. I love smelling the spine, breaking it open for the first time. I like knowing that I can write in it if it is something that I know is
Yeah.
important for me to write in. And so you have to really know yourself. I love to listen to podcasts. I don't love to listen to books on tape.
That's how I am
And
too. Yeah.
notice I say books on tape because that's how they're not on tape anymore. I don't like to listen to audio
The
tapes.
audio
So
books.
right. So if you like, I said audio tapes, you see, it's so
Right.
ingrained in us, kids of the 70s and 80s. I think it's really important to be able to hang on to books that are meaningful to you, that somehow having them on the shelf, means something. But the reality is just so much of it we can get online now.
Yeah, I like with my move, I'm a book reader, so I'm like, well, I haven't read it in the past 6 months to a year, so I'm like, donate. I'm like, I got rid of so many books. I was like, bless someone else. Bless someone else. Have someone else get the blessing.
I like that. Bless someone else. I mean, like, doesn't that make it so much easier to let go of when you say it that way? Yeah.
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 Awesome. Just got some more. I don't see any more questions. It's more comments. So I'm just gonna pause. I'm gonna stop the recording.